You know what to do to achieve your goal. So why aren't you doing it? You don't have a lack of knowledge problem. You have a mindset problem. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstuck High Performer podcast. This is the show for the high performer who knows that they're capable of more, but feels stuck underperforming relative to their potential. I'm your host, Paul Salter. I'm a high performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach, and I'm thrilled you're here today because I have a very special guest. You may know him from the Joe Rogan podcast. You may know him from his incredible book, The Success Code. Maybe you know him from social media. Maybe you know him from his past chapter of life in the fitness space. I know him from all of those walks of life, and I'm also grateful and proud to say that I know him from a coaching experience. I've gone through 2 evolutions of coaching with today's guest, and the impact that our work together has had on me professionally and personally has been nothing short of incredible. Today's guest is Brandon Epstein, a highly regarded mental performance coach, speaker, author, entrepreneur, family man, husband, father, who's best known for helping athletes, executives, entrepreneurs, and high achievers unlock elite performance through mindset mastery, emotional control, confidence, and consistency. And he has a very grounded, calming approach that is designed to get to the core of who you are, to clean up the inner garbage that is holding you back. And he was kind enough to join me for a deep dive conversation on what it takes to get unstuck, out of your own way, and achieve your potential. You need to have something handy to take notes with because the wisdom that Brandon shares is in abundance. So without further ado, let's dive in. Brandon, you have coached countless CEOs, executives, professional athletes. So I want to get your opinion based on your experience. Why do smart, talented people who know exactly what to do still fail to execute consistently?
Yeah, bro. It's the hidden subconscious coding that runs our lives beneath our conscious awareness. I know you probably talk about this quite a bit in the show and how these narratives and stories and programs that are running beneath our conscious awareness affect our lives. But that's ultimately it, man. It's like most people know what to do. You know, if you're like sitting down with someone and he's like, man, my health is just crap recently. And you're like, what have you been doing? He's like, oh, I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and, drink a half a bottle of whiskey. And you're like, oh, what could you do to make the biggest impact on your health right now? And it's like, oh, just stop doing those things. But we have to get to the root of why people participate in those behaviors, which is like oftentimes we're numbing, we're trying to suppress, and we're not actually able to access our true essence. And so as a byproduct, we use other substances or habits or ways of being to make life tolerable in that process.
Really well said. So is it fear? Is it misalignment, a misconstrued identity? What's the driver of these sabotaging behaviors?
Yeah, I think that those 3 things you just mentioned are all true, and maybe they're like ways of describing the same thing or ways of describing parts of the same thing. We run through those one by one. Fear, okay, absolutely. I really just view all emotion under 2 umbrellas. There's love and all the positive, empowering emotions of that, and that kind of pulls you forward, makes you want to take an empowered action. And there's fear. And the other side that has all the disempowering emotions, the guilt, the sadness, the shame, and it's going to hold you back. So yes, fear ultimately, and whatever your version of fear is, because most people wouldn't admit to actually being afraid, but they might say, I'm concerned, or I'm dealing with some nerves, or I've got some anxiety about this. So yes, And yes.
Dude, I love what you just said. I kid you not, an hour ago, I'm listening to a podcast with Tony Robbins, and he's talking about motivation. He doesn't even like the word, but he describes motivation as two types. There's the push type, or then there's the pull or the magnetic type. And what you said just embodied that so well when you broke down love and fear. Love pulls you. It's a nudging, an alignment, an attraction. Where if you're fear driven, there's this push, this go, this do, which can create the friction, the resistance, and the burnout.
The procrastination, the excuses. Yeah, I actually have one of my buddies who's at my place right now because I'm trying a new YouTube video style where I'm going to like shoot coaching sessions and then just upload them and just kind of show the raw behind the scenes. And we were just exploring this for him because he's got this company that's growing. And it's like, okay, dude, like if you just do these things, like things look pretty good for you. So why aren't you doing that? And it is all a derivative of fear. For him, as an example, one of his early businesses, he sold for stock and then COVID happened and the stock went from $16 a share to like 6 cents, literally just died. And so everything he built went to zero. So, you know, as we go down the rabbit hole, what we uncovered is like, oh yeah, dude, why wouldn't you just do the low-hanging fruit in front of you to move your business forward? And it's because at the subconscious level, because of this traumatic experience with the previous business, he believed that even if he built something really successful, he would never get to enjoy the fruits of his labor. And that's just because that was his experience, his story. And so I think people can get confused or like between the push-pull energy, the love, they're like, of course I want to go towards something I love or what feels good, but they don't really take into consideration like what are these, you know, hidden programs based off your past experiences that are making you look at something, you're like, of course I want this, but then there's this deeper root to it that says, no, dude, it's not gonna be worth it. And so then you procrastinate, you're not consistent, you start, you stop, you don't get where you want to go.
I like the term psychological safety. And what I'm hearing is these programs ultimately create a lack of psychological safety, whether having more money, more success, more love. Am I on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, thinking about, oh, what if I achieve this and I lose it all? That feels a lot less safe than just not even trying.
Yeah.
So you stay stuck. And so there's just different levels to this, right? I think, we all know that like there's these invisible ceilings that appear and like once you break through one, there's going to be another. And that's like the infinite game of life is to just be constantly identifying what is that invisible ceiling that's appearing right above you and be like, all right, is this some derivative of fear, which feels like resistance, which feels like I can't, or I don't know how, or I don't have the right connection, or I don't know enough. And really there's just a story behind it. And once you are able to move through that story, the ceiling disappears.
So you made it. I love that framework of just different levels of life, and you use the infinite game. I'm a big fan of that frame point, that view of the, we have to just always be learning, be growing, being willing to look within it. Like the journey, the game never stops. Yet you and I also both know to get from one level to the next can be incredibly taxing, challenging, uncomfortable to say the least. So for that person listening who's had some success, but they feel maybe that success came at the expense of their well-being, their marriage, their relationship with key figures in their life. What do you say to that person to empower or inspire them to still keep doing the work on their journey upward?
Yeah. I really want to bring that person back to their inspiration, right? It's not about like trying to achieve something grandiose because they saw someone else do it or someone in their industry did something similar and they're like, that's what I should do next, right? Because that's a trap right there, because you might just be moving towards something. Again, Tony Robbins, right? What does he say? Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. So you could become an industry leader. You can achieve something that you feel like is the next step for you on your journey, and you could get there and not enjoy it and not be fulfilled. And maybe you don't feel that inspiration because that's not really meant for you. That's not your path. So I'd tell that person, hey, come back into your body, come back into your heart. And I want you to realign with the inspiration. What's there right now? And maybe what's there is I've been pushing and grinding for so long and I need to empty my cup before I take the next step. Right? Or maybe I've been grinding on my business and I have not taken care of my health, and I have to put some attention there. So usually people want to like invest their energy into the areas of their life that they're already successful in, because that is this, reaffirming cycle that you're in. You're like, oh, I'm good at this. Let's just keep going here, right?
Yeah.
That's why a client, I'm sure you've experienced this, might come to me and say, all right, man, like I really need to take this next step in my business. And we do an intake, and you're like, oh, dude, you're about to get divorced. Like, what's going to like bring you more net happiness and enjoyment in your life? Like making, $11 million next year instead of 10, or is it to repair your marriage and actually feel at peace in your home? So that's why the inspiration is so important. You have to identify, like, am I just taking the next step because it's what I think I should do? Or is there actually heart-led inspiration here?
For those of you listening, go back and listen to those last 3-4 minutes. Absolute golden wisdom there. And, this hits home for me because I'm guilty, and I think a lot of people are, is as you climb into the next rung or level of success, you do more. I should be doing this. I need to be doing this. I have to be doing this. And like you said it from the get-go, even with that simple weight loss example, you didn't focus on, counting macros, exercising. It's what do you need to stop doing? Get less on your plate. And something, you've changed my life in many positive ways, but one profound thing you said to me, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, was when I was starting to clear my calendar, making more space. You could already tell my urge to want to fill that space with something else. And you challenged me, don't do anything extra. Just sit with that space. And that is probably part of the inception of this new direction in the podcast. But speak to that a little more, that constant need to want to add more and do more, when really the direction for next level success is doing less better.
Yeah. And of course, we're talking to the high achiever here, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking to the dude who's sitting in his mom's basement who's like just watching reruns of TV shows he's seen 100 times. I know that's who's listening to this podcast anyway. Like, because there really are these two types of people out there that I found, is like, it's the people you have to like rein them back in, and there's the ones that you got to smack in the butt and get them going, right?
Yeah.
And so people who are going to seek out a podcast like this are the people we need to rein back in. And those people have learned that success comes through consistent action, which makes sense. Yeah, of course it does. But they've also learned, maybe some of them, to disconnect from their emotions, from their body, from their actual inspiration, because things need to be done, tasks need to be completed, and they just have to get through those really intense periods of their life just to keep moving forward. And for those people, I'd say, okay, what if I told you were right then, right? What if I acknowledged you for doing what you needed to do to get through that season? And maybe someone who's listening right now is like in one of those seasons. It's like, okay, cool, get through it. But in the circumstance of where you were at, Paul, was like, you kind of got through some of these more difficult seasons, and you were in this space of a new expansion point. I think what we found was that expansion was going to come from a different resonance, a different emotional frequency and experience. We wanted it aligned with even more joy, more fun, more lightness, instead of, yeah, cool, like you can put your head down and grind and get things done and be successful. But it's just a different texture to the energy we want to expand in. So if we kept on trying to take action from that old energy, that old way of being, it would have created an attraction point for more of the same. Sure, maybe make the money, maybe have lots of clients, but how would you feel within the process of that? And we wanted to bring in more joy, more expansion. And so we had to create this space for that.
Fair to say that an achievement in a unique, sick, twisted way is also a form of emotional avoidance.
It can be. Absolutely. Listen, people get addicted to all kinds of things, right? You can be addicted to working out. You can be addicted to the next business achievement, to scaling your company to the next level. Or it could be booze, or it could be cocaine, or it could be porn, or whatever. I think it's just, it takes slowing down enough to like see, oh, wait a minute. This was good. Now it's not, right? Like this was good up to a point, and now this is no longer serving me.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, what about for you? You speak very openly, vulnerably in your book, The Success Code. Everyone listening, I'll put the link in the show notes. It's a phenomenal book. It's what led me to Brandon and what led us here, almost a year later of paths crossing. But I know there was a period in your life where, at least from the outside, somebody who didn't know you could see things about your life and be like, yeah, this dude's pretty fucking successful. But on the inside, there was a different story: friction, chaos, uncertainty. Talk about that experience and how you worked through it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything. I'm just figuring it out on the fly, honestly. I've always been doing that. And so I feel like I've just always tried to take the next step that felt like most aligned with me. I knew it pretty much 18 years old that I wanted to be coaching in this space. I knew this was kind of my jam. I just didn't know how I was going to make a full-time living doing it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's many iterations of that, The first was graduating college and then not getting a normal job, instead creating a meditation app company and taking everything that I teach and put it into mobile apps, and then having a little bit of traction there, and then getting a little bit of that identity of like, oh yeah, I have an app company, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, you're 22 years old, you're 23, you look like you have something going on. It's like behind the scenes, like I had hit this invisible ceiling in my company and I was slowly digging myself into deeper and deeper debt. So much so that like I maxed out my credit cards, and then eventually I just had to file for bankruptcy. Had to let my first business partner buy me out from the app company, which is like all of my content. And I had to hand it over to him. And he was more of like a mentor business partner. He showed me the ropes, but then ultimately became more or less my company. And so, I've had many ego deaths like that where I was like, oh yeah, I'm 22, 23, and I got it going on. I got my meditation company. Look, you guys are working corporate jobs. I got my own company. Or like the truth of the matter was like, sure, like I had figured something out, but I was not, I was not experiencing the traction that I desired that would have created the freedom that I truly desired. And so I got a lot of stories like that of basically having my ego crushed and then having to start over again.
Yeah, I hear that. I relate to that, and I appreciate you sharing that. So let's expand upon that. Success wasn't quite what you thought it was. Maybe your definition of success has evolved since that point. Well, I know it has, but what are some of the most common problems you've seen in the clients you've worked with in terms of someone becomes successful and these problems begin to show up that nobody warned them about?
Yeah, the problem of winning. What happens when you actually win the game, Because the way you win the game, right, the matrix game, is essentially you get so much money that you don't have to play anymore, right? That's like the game that most people are playing, especially in business. And the thing is, what I found with a lot of my clients is that like they win that game not because they're like chasing the money, but they win the game because they fell so deeply into the process of just building and dominating and just taking the next step, the next step, the next step. But then, what happens when you don't have to play the game anymore? And then you kind of pull your head out and you go, wait, who am I if I'm not playing this game? Right? And then you have this whole identity crisis of not knowing who you are. And so to numb the feelings that come up and the emptiness of not knowing who you are, not knowing what you're going to do when you don't have your company you work on, you drink, you smoke, you gamble, you throw it all away. And I've seen this many times in business and pro sports. People will literally, sabotage themselves, drown themselves spiritually in the process of trying to find out who they are.
It's almost like that success they begin to have magnifies the unresolved internal issues they've failed to deal with.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like it's your greatest weapon when you're going into battle and you're building, and then you basically it becomes a way that you're destroying yourself with that same weapon.
Yeah. So I want to tie this next part of our conversation to that, speak a little personally too. One of the areas you and I worked on was this whole, psychology 101 is what you resist persists. And I think you do an exceptional job educating and then, holding accountable and empowering, your clients, me in this case, to get to a place of acceptance. And my listeners know I've had I share surface level some of the challenges I face co-parenting my son with his mother, on a much deeper scale. But what always stood out to me was wanting to push back on just acceptance, accept this is the truth, this is reality, and wanting to shape it into my own lens to fit my goals. Speak a little bit more about why high performers often struggle with acceptance, and B, how you've coached clients and yourself to get to a place of acceptance.
Yeah, like you said, what we can't accept won't change. And so why
Mm,
is that so hard to deal with is because like I'm sure if you're a high performer, like what you've built has been on the back of the identity you're living in right now. And so sure, like you're in acceptance that like this got you this far, but it's really hard to accept that what got you all the success you have isn't going to get you where you want to go.
yeah.
Because again, who are you? Who are you on the other side of this identity that you built that you're withdrawing from? Right? It's like there's a big crisis there. And that's why people don't want to
Mm,
accept that oftentimes.
yeah.
And, I really try to frame it for my clients. Listen, you're right then and you're right now. This is just a part of your evolution. It's just, it's the self-actualization piece. Dude, you don't have to worry about money anymore. You're good. So
Yeah.
what's next? Let's kind of dig into what what caused you to build this in the first place, which oftentimes it comes from a wounded place, which is
Mm,
fine. It's just that now you have the space to deal with what was underneath the whole time. And so the way that I get my clients to accept what needs to be changed is by just holding a mirror in front of them and having them just examine, what's going well, what's not going well in their life, and just hold that mirror, because as we know, like there's nothing that I could ever say that's going to make another person want to change. I just have to hold the mirror in front of them long enough for them to go, yeah, actually, I don't want that anymore.
mm.
And then I go, okay, cool. So let's just fully accept that this is not who you want to be anymore. Isn't how you want to behave anymore. And that is the first step in being able to change things.
Most people listening, or I shouldn't say most, but many likely might interchange this acceptance with surrender or letting go. And many
Mm-hmm.
people also, to go one step further, see surrender as a sign of weakness. So, how do you define surrender in a high performance context in terms of getting to that next level of success?
Yeah. So for me, like surrender comes after acceptance. It's
Okay.
accepting what is. And then I kind of visualize our lives on these timelines. And you
Yeah.
know this because we play on my timeline. I have you visualize all the time. And I'm like, to the right's the future, to the left's the past. So it's like you're accepting in the present moment. And
Hmm.
then you're surrendering that story, that identity, that way of being into the past. And so that's the framework I'd use for someone who's like, oh, I don't want to surrender. Like, I'm not a bitch. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
viewed as weak. And it's like understanding, no. This isn't, this isn't taking anything away from you. Rather, like the surrender is something that allows you just to step into something new. That's all it
Mm.
is. It's just a letting go into the past so you can fully embrace what's here right now.
So let me push you one step further here just to clarify
Yeah.
any potential confusion amongst our listeners. What would you say then is the difference between giving up and letting go of what's no longer serving you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There needs to be a certain level of awareness
Mm,
of what that action is and where it's coming from, right? If you've been doing something for a long time and you know that it's no longer in alignment and no longer feels like this is the path you need to be on for whatever reason, and it usually comes up because you're being pulled into something greater, then that's a time to surrender it and let it
mm,
go. Whereas, let's say you're working on something and you know this is your purpose, this is your path, and you feel inspired to take action, but it's hard. And then you make a decision just to give up because it's so hard, right? So
yeah.
I'd say that is the main difference is, if I could make this more succinct, it's aligning with whatever your purpose is, which is essentially like, what is that
Mm,
higher energy that's pulling you forward, right? Connecting to this higher energy, connected to God, whatever you believe in, what is pulling you forward? And is it hard? And are you giving up just because it's hard and you
mm,
haven't got success yet? Or are you letting it go because you've realized, wait a minute, this actually isn't my highest expression. I'm not being pulled in this direction anymore. And so like, you asked about some of my like stories from the past, and I had a really large following in the fitness space. I grew a YouTube channel to over 1 million subscribers, hundreds of millions of views. And I did that as like in between venture between the meditation app company and being able to go full-time working one-to-one with clients. And so when I was working on that, I always knew this wasn't my highest expression. It wasn't my full purpose, right? But I also knew that this is a way that I was going to get traction and I was going to dig myself out of debt. I was going to get money so I can support my family. I was going to create stability. So I no longer have to get on a potential coaching client call or a prospect call and be like, God, I need this guy to give me money or I'm not going to be able to afford my groceries. Right?
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to come from that energy because that's where I was coming from when I first got on this path. And so there was periods on that journey where it was really hard, where it wasn't working. It was like the first year we weren't getting traction on the YouTube channel. And it felt like I wanted to give up.
Yeah.
But I knew that like this is a part of my path towards getting to where I want to go. And so instead of giving up, I just saw things through and I didn't give up. I kept going. And I got to a place where I actually had the traction. I made the money. I got completely out of debt. I started to, on the side, build my coaching business and my one-to-one clients. And when I got to that place, then it was time to surrender this business, to let my business partner buy me out so I could fully move into my highest expression, which is the one-to-one work. So hopefully that helps as like an example of that.
Yeah, and you nailed it. Like I love that you mentioned and you led with the difference in the answer to your question is awareness. And as I've gotten to know you, incredible self-awareness. Does that come naturally? Do you have an awareness practice or a routine that allows you to consistently check in with yourself?
You know, I've really done a lot of work to become meditation. So I don't actually meditate that much, but I think that the work I've done has allowed me to embrace like a consistent awareness that's almost like merging with meditation. Because what meditation is, it's like being in awareness of your experience in the moment fully. And so I think I can feel it, you know? And so I think I live in that pretty consistently. And so I feel the sensations in my body. I can feel if fear comes up. I can feel a push versus a pull. And that's just repetition. That's like anything else, right? It's like practicing these skills over the years. I've been in this space for 17 plus years. So it's just all these repetitions over the years of learning myself and going beyond the conscious barrier and accessing deeper parts of myself and cleaning up my inner world. And this is something that one of my mentors taught me is, when you have a dirty inner world, in other words, like your subconscious is full of all these beliefs that are constantly getting triggered all the time. That person says something, oh, now I feel insecure, or oh, I didn't do the thing that I was supposed to do. Now I feel lazy. It's like all these triggers are coming from these deeper stories. And once you deal with those stories, the triggers disappear. And then it's a lot easier to stay in the state of awareness all the time, because instead of like being bombarded all the time with these triggers that are pulling you off your path, it's just once in a while. And when they come in, you're like, what is that? That's interesting. Let's wiggle around that. Let's see if I want to let go of that little piece.
Yeah, I like to use the frameworks. It's inevitable that multiple times a day or whatever the frequency be, an emotion is going to attempt to hijack the steering wheel of your day. And whether or not you have the awareness and the desire to act on it is a totally different story based on your unique experience. One question I wrote down, like literally moments before we hopped on this, that I wanted to ask about is, you work with a lot of professional fighters, specifically in the boxing realm. And, you know, I've got some kickboxing and Krav Maga experience under my belt. I know what it's like to have to flip the switch when I'm literally fighting for my life, or at least feels like that. Yet a lot of the work that you do is so deep, emotional, and it really embodies a blend of masculine and feminine energy. And then here, these guys are stepping in the ring, literally fighting life or death, and it could literally alter the entire trajectory on their life. So speak to somebody who has that killer instinct in business or in professional sports. How do you allow them to toggle effortlessly between that killer instinct and the ability to sit back into emotional awareness?
Yeah, I think that being able to be attuned to your own emotional experience in the present moment actually allows you to access an even deeper part of that killer instinct, right? I think that if you're not connected to your emotions, it's way more easy for your emotions to get hijacked. Right? And so what I'm teaching these fighters or the CEOs I'm working with is to be very attuned to their emotional experience so they can identify like, where is this emotion coming from, and they can use it to their benefit instead of to their detriment. Versus like, let's say you're fighting, right? And like someone does something, I don't know, they poke you in the eye, or like, you know, they're doing something that you're like, oh, that's a little bit shady. And then you just start getting angry and you start fighting angry. And then like you're throwing your, you're supposed to be jabbing this guy to death. That's how you're going to win the fight. You should jab. But then you go start exchanging with him and you fell right into his trap because you don't have control of your emotions. And so I think the person who's trained notices that come up and they smile and they go, okay, I see what's coming up there. I see that's a trigger. I thought that this person was cheating. And so now I'm angry. I want to go hurt them for that. And so they can kind of like feel it and process it in real time and be like, okay, this person's trying to cheat. I'm not falling into the trap.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Of course, it applies to business and everything.
Yeah, really well said. And I'm going to shift the gears here, but it's really just stacking one concept after the next here, confidence. I often describe it as the most addictive and desired drug in the world. We all want that confidence. When we feel unstoppable, it is like being high on a drug, or so they say. Never done cocaine, so I can't speak directly to it, but I imagine it's just some similarities there. But I'm curious, what do most people get wrong about confidence?
Confidence. Yeah. I think we all know that confidence comes from experience, right? Like you have positive experience and then you're oftentimes going to feel more confident.
Yeah.
Just because you've been in that situation before. It's like things go well. You're like, cool. Right? It's like the first time you have sex, you have like no confidence going into it. But then you have sex half a dozen times and you're like, all right, like I had some positive experiences. I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing. It could also go the opposite way, right? It's like you have sex for the first time and like you're fumbling your way through it. You feel like you do a terrible job and it's super awkward. And then you're like, damn. And then maybe you never even want to do it again. You're like, it's not even worth it. It's just so awkward. Right. And so I think maybe one thing that people get wrong is believing that the only way you get confidence is just through that experience in itself, which of course, positive experiences will create confidence. But I think a lot of the belief work that we've done together can also create confidence, because what it does is it creates an identity for you to step into that's aligned with your highest self. And your highest self just is oozing with confidence because it's not a trying, it's a being. And your true essence, when you're being yourself, is confident. And so I think if we can identify the parts of yourself that feel less than, not enough, and we move through some of those beliefs that are making you feel that way, I think that your natural expression, what's on the other side, is confidence.
When somebody has lost confidence in themselves, maybe they've endured one setback after the next, where do you begin rebuilding it?
Yeah, I think we're coming back to fear, right? We're coming back to their fear. We're identifying, okay, where's fear living in my body right now? Because that's the thing that's killing your confidence. So I think that is exactly where we're sending our heat-seeking missile, is into the fear that lives emotionally in your body. And if you can go into the fear, you're going to identify the underlying belief, the code that is running your supercomputer that's making you feel less than confident. And it doesn't matter that you've had all these stacked experiences that you feel like are killing your confidence. You can always just clear the slate if we can get to the root of where that fear is coming from.
If someone continues to drive with fear in the driver's seat, you and I both know that is a fast track to burnout, overwhelm, implosion, however we want to describe it. Why do you feel, what have you observed, personally and professionally, high performers are so prone to burnout?
I think it's because, I don't know, I feel like this is almost unavoidable. If you're trying to do anything big in business, sports, anything big, when you're getting into your bigness, there is going to be a period of time where you shut your emotions off. And like, I'm not even saying this is a good thing, but I also don't know if it's avoidable. There's going to be a period of time where you are getting too big for your britches. And so you don't want to even acknowledge where things are going. Because if you did, it'd probably be too much for you and you might just implode in that moment. And so part of you just turns off that connection to self just to keep pushing, just to stay stacking action habits to keep moving forward. And I think that that's okay for a season of time, right? You can do that for a season, but at some point, you need to reconnect back with yourself to actually connect with the intuition, instincts, whatever it is that are going to tell you, hey, dude, maybe you should work out a few times a week. Hey, dude, maybe you should take Sundays off. Hey, dude, maybe you should not have a nightcap every single night to deal with the stress. So the burnout is a byproduct of never reconnecting to yourself after you've disconnected during a really intense season of work.
So for someone you're working with or somebody listening right now who doesn't have the depth of experience you have to kind of navigate through the day in this effortless meditative like state, where do you recommend they begin to start building that habit of whether we call it a check-in with self or a realignment?
Yeah. I think awareness starts with the question, what's it feel like to be me right now? That's the core foundation for everything. So oftentimes clients that I'll work with, I'll bring them in for the first session. If there's someone who's been grinding for a long time, hustling, achieving, growing, ask them that question and they'll be like, they'll give me an answer that comes from their head. It'll be like an explanation of what's going on in their life instead of a sharing of an authentic feeling in the moment. And so they have to relearn that. And so if anyone like falls into that bucket, like it's a relearning. And so there's some exercises that I give people to relearn. One is I say, hey, why don't you just set some alarms in your phone every day, every 3 hours, let's say for a week. And they're going to ask you, what does it feel like to be me right now? I just want you to take a moment to close your eyes and see if you can go beyond the mental story of, well, this went well and this didn't, and just go right into the feeling and see if you can connect to that. So that's one exercise I give. I'll also say this. There's one core belief that you've already kind of referred to earlier that's going to hold you back from connecting back to the feeling, which is I believe that sharing my feelings or being vulnerable makes me weak, right? Or whatever iteration of that. If you believe that to be true, of course, you're not going to put yourself in that exposed state. And so you need to accept that, like we talked about, surrender that story into the past, and then choose a new story, which would be the opposite polarity. I believe that feeling my feelings makes me strong. I believe that the more vulnerable I am, the more successful and happy I'm going to be. Whatever the opposite belief is, that's going to get you reconnected to yourself.
So good. So good. And I've lived it. So I know I've experienced it and I appreciate you so much. Shifting gears here, let's talk more performance for a moment. And for those of you listening, I want you to think about your unique performance arena. Maybe it's leading a team, speaking in public. Maybe it's performing in front of a crowd athletically or professionally. When you've worked with clients, Brandon, who dominate in practice, preparation, and planning, but completely underperform or come up short when in public, why do you see that occur, and how do you work with them to bring that same level of execution to the public performance arena?
Yeah. I think what you said is important to point out, though, is like, Mike Tyson used to talk about how many guys used to just beat him up in sparring all the time. And then they go and have a fight and they would just shrink in the spotlight and they wouldn't be able to deliver that performance that they're doing, beating him up in sparring matches. And I think part of that, if we're going to use that example, it's like Mike Tyson was literally hypnotized, right? He went through hypnosis as a preteen and in through his teen years to believe that he was the baddest man on the planet and that nobody stands a chance with him in the ring, which is why when he got in there, he was literally hypnotized to be able to perform in the moment. Most people are not getting hypnotized to perform in the moment. And so we could call it an invisible ceiling. We could call it like a governor that tells a car not to go too fast. But oftentimes when the bigger the moment, the more pressure kicks in and the more, that primordial part of ourselves go, this isn't safe. Let's get out of here. Right. And so I think you have to feel into some of those arenas where you're feeling that come up for you of like, oh, Something is hitting the brakes. Something's saying don't go any faster. Something's saying slow down. And you have to ask yourself the question, what am I believing to be true right now that's causing me to stop dead in my tracks? And that is going to be the key for unlocking your ability to show up in the big moments when they count.
Really well said. And so you mentioned, though, that fear, that emotion living in your upper stomach. Someone listening either has that awareness or they're picking up what you're throwing down, and they're going to move forward and they're going to start to be hyper aware of when fear and emotion is present. And you're instructing, sit with it. Elaborate. If I'm listening and I'm just coming into your work or across you for the first time, and I'm understanding it logically, but like emotionally, walk them through what you mean to just sit with it and to work towards acceptance.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually we try to solve problems in our head, but that only allows us to get access to our conscious mind. So if we want to access the subconscious root that's actually driving how we feel and how we behave in every moment, we have to go through the emotion. So it's not going to be an intellectual exercise. It's going to be a somatic feeling exercise. And so we have to close your eyes. This isn't something that's going to be done with your eyes open, trying to like think your way through it. No, you have to actually feel where that fear lives in your body. And you have to feel so deep into it, and you have to sit into the tension in it. And this is a skill. This is a muscle. This is something you'll develop.
Yeah.
And the more you practice it, you're going to feel it and you're going to go, what am I believing to be true? It's making me feel so afraid. Why? What am I believing to be true? You have to hold yourself in the tension without going into your head and trying to explain it. And if you do that long enough, it's almost like this bubbling up. It's just going to be like, boom. It's going to come up and you're going to be like, I believe I'm a phony. I shouldn't even be in this position in the first place. Oh God. Oh. It's like a purge. It's a vomit. The vomiting up of something that's been living in your energy body, and just bringing it to the surface itself dissolves a lot of its power. And so just saying it out loud and just going, fine, I'm not going to try to fight or resist this. I'm going to accept it. It's true. I am a phony. And it doesn't have to map anything rationally. You don't have to be like, well, actually, I've been doing this for 12 years and I have all this success, so I'm not a phony. No. The story is you're a phony, except you're a phony. And through the acceptance of it, you'll be able to start to dissolve it and transmute it, which is just a fancy way of saying flip it to the opposite, right? The opposite of light is dark. The opposite of being smart is dumb. The opposite of being a phony is being the real deal.
Yeah. Pretty cool to hear that thunder right on cue when you were adding the extra emotion there.
Yeah, we're out here in the Colombian jungle, bro. Torrential downpour. That's how they roll.
You still hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. We're back. Cool. Then I want to get you out of here on two things. One, just the biggest expression of gratitude from me, my heart, for your time, Brandon. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed this so much. I want you to let the listeners know, where can they go to buy your book, connect with you, and learn more about applying to work with you?
I have a book on Amazon. It's called The Success Code.
Yeah.
You can get it there. It's available on Audible, Spotify for listening. I did the audiobook myself. And then the physical version is available on Amazon. And if you're interested in my work, the main things I'm doing these days are in-person immersion. So I built a retreat center down here in Colombia. That's why my internet's kind of in and out. And that's why we have the thunderstorms in the background. So if you want to come down here for an immersive experience, I'm running different experiences a few times a year. So you can go to my website, thebrandonepstein.com. And if you want to work together one-to-one, you can apply in that same place and we can have a discussion about that as well.
Awesome. So let me get you out of here on this. For everybody listening, what is one truth that high performers need to hear if they know they're capable of more, but they feel stuck right now?
It's fully believing that it's who you are that makes you valuable and not just what you do. Now sit with that for a moment. It's who you are that makes you valuable, not just what you do. Now, this may seem really paradoxical because you're saying you want to achieve more, but what are we doing? We're actually disconnecting from the urgency around needing, the neediness because the truth of the matter is that everything you desire is a manifestation of your truest expression and inspiration. And that can only come from who you truly are. So it's
Mm,
so paradoxical because we think that we need to like try to become something, do more to get more results. Or what I find, and I think Paul, you could probably be a testament to this, is that the more you go into your own essence and find that value within who you are beyond the achievement, the more life seems to come to you, the more magnetic you become, and it takes less effort and there's more flow, and you're actually
yeah.
receiving more without doing more.
That personally experienced it and love that we get to end this conversation with that. Thank you so much, Brandon.
You're so welcome, bro. Thank you for having me, and excuse my shitty clummy internet.
Hey, we're resilient. We're flexible. We're adaptive. We make it
Yeah,
work.
flowing like water, baby.
I thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Unstuck High Performer podcast. I have one simple ask for you. Share this conversation. There is somebody in your life that you know who is feeling stuck. Share this conversation, the wisdom that Brandon shared with that person. And if this episode resonated with you, take that seriously. It usually means that part of you knows it's time to make a change. If you're a high performer ready to break free from what's been holding you back, then I can't encourage you enough to reach out to either Brandon, myself, to get unstuck, to do the work necessary to reclaim your power, your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of authenticity. Make today great, and I'll catch you in the next episode.